Okay, so what I want to do is I want to render this in V-Ray. And so I've just opened it up here in 2017. First thing I need to do, let's check and see if we've got V-Ray on here. And I do. If I didn't have it on here, I'd have to make sure that I go to Windows, Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager, and let's see, where is it? Right here. V-Ray for Maya. Okay, loaded, auto load. Great, those are on. Just going to take the controllers and hide them so we can do this a little bit faster. And if I grab everything and I hit 3, it smooths it out. Okay, I just want to do the quick V-Ray render. There's better ways to do this, but I'm skipping over that for now. I'm going to make sure the viewport subdivision's on, so now when I render, and I go over here and I hit the render button. Okay, nothing happens for no reason at all. And if I grab all this stuff here and I right click and I say assign new material, there's the V-Ray material. If I right click, I can add it to favorites. Okay. And it might have had a mental ray material on it. That's why it wasn't rendering. Now, it's rendering fine, but everything's all black. Also, I'd like a floor. So if I go to create V-Ray, V-Ray plane, and I'll just make the plane a bit bigger so it's easier to see. And I might just move it over to the side so that in case something else goes in there in a moment. So now when I render, we're seeing a infinite plane. Okay, I see this black background here. If I'm looking at my render settings here into environment, I can go to override environment and I can change this to a nice light gray. Maybe I'll even make it somewhat of a chromatic. So if I make something like this, make it blue. Actually, let's make it magenta. And then we'll go over and make it a very light magenta. Okay, and now when I render, this background back here is going to have that light color in it. Okay, great. Next thing I want to do is I want to have it so that this thing here, the V-Ray plane, is inheriting this light color. So if I right click and I assign a new material, I'm going to assign something called a V-Ray wrapper. Material wrapper, that is. And for the material wrapper, let's go in and look here. Can I tear this puppy off? Why won't it let me tear off my freaking attribute editor? I don't like it when my attribute editor is stuck on the back. You bastard. Okay, whatever. So it's freaking stuck for a moment. Why would it be stuck? It wasn't stuck a moment ago. Okay, if I go in here and I put a base material, I've got to plug in a V-Ray material in here. Okay, great. I'm going to hit the back arrow to get back to where I was. I'm going to put on matte surface, -1, shadows and effect alpha. And now when I render, this should be totally on a whitish background with that slight magenta in here. But now I'm not seeing any shadows. That's because I need lights. So first light I'm going to throw in. Let's go and create lights. And I'm just going to throw in a dome light. I'm just going to move this over here so I can easily see it. Doesn't matter where it's actually located. Okay. And now when I render, we'll get this kind of powdery look. You can see a little bit of this almost ambient occlusion powdery look over here. And I just noticed something. I've got another setting on here that I'm not necessarily wanting to show at this point. Actually, the eye is funny. Whatever, I'll leave that alone. If I just go over here to V-Ray, right now we're rendering with a progressive renderer. I'm going to use adaptive for this one. And I'm going to change this to 32. That just renders a little bit faster. And so now, when I press play, or press render, the little teapot, okay, things are a little bit cleaner. There's still problems with this, but okay, that's great. And how come we're getting the white? Oh yeah, the white. The white comes from the dome light. I'm just going to hit escape while we're rendering. And I'm just going to make it so that the options... Escape! Come on! Frickin' escape, spinning wheel of death. Okay, there we are. I'm going to make, you bastard, in the options for the dome light, I'm going to make it invisible so it doesn't show up. Okay? That's that white thing back there. And so now with the override, with the dome light, with the material wrapper on the infinite plane. Everything's going to be exciting here. I'm just going to put this on so it renders, that little button renders around wherever my cursor is. And this is kind of fun. La, 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 la. I'm just going to hit escape because you already kind of see what's going on. And then, so we got all these things working. Great. Then, if I go in here, I might want to have... Let's just grab his head, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to assign a new material. I'm going to assign a V-Ray material. This is really weird. That's stuck. Okay, whatever. I'll stop thinking about it for now. And I've got, on this material, you can put any kind of color you want on it, whatever, right? But down here, if I want to play with the reflections, if I crank up the reflections, you can see the Fresnel is on. If I turn that off, now I'll get total reflections. I'm just going to see if I hit render again. Okay, so we're getting this kind of white sky. It's reflecting the dome light, okay? If I want to, if I go back to that dome light, and I put it here so I can easily click on it, I can go into its use dome text, and I can load in some kind of file texture and grab myself a nice little H2I free image, okay? And now if I render that same thing out right here, we're seeing a nice little reflection there. Okay, and we're actually seeing that it's changing the tone of the light overall. We kind of got this bluey thing going on from the sky because there's a lot of sky and clouds and stuff. Okay, and I'm just going to hit escape on that. I'm happy with that. And then I might give it some kind of key light. So if I go into create light, and I might go in and create some kind of rec light. And the rec light is quite small over here. I'm just going to go to the U size and the V size, make it a bit bigger. I might put on some directional action on it. And if I want to, I can go to panels, look through selected. Come on, you bastard! Okay, and then I can look, and there's my little robot's head, and I'll just hit F. Okay, and I'll just zoom out a little bit. This image here is coming from the dome light. I probably have to hide it in order to see properly. Let's go back to perspective, though. And let's see how that render looks on the head right now. Is this too hot? I get this feeling it might be a little bit hot. And remember that I can do one of two things. I can change the intensity of the light, or I can just back it up, right? I can back up the light, and the intensity won't be as strong. I just want to see what the shadows are going to look like down here. Get some kind of nice shadow out of this. Yeah, I can see the shadow over here. And this seems kind of interesting to me. And anything else I want to say about that? Oh, I might notice a little highlight from the light. You can see some little very white section right here. If I grab the material on the head, which is V-Ray material 3, I can go in here and unlock the highlight reflection glossiness. I can go and make the reflections kind of glossy, which is going to blur them a little bit. That's lots. And then I'll bring this down to, say, for the highlight, let's bring it down to, say, in the 6.6 zone, and see what that looks like up here. Okay, so now that highlight is blending in a bit more with this. I could also make it invisible in the reflections too if I change that setting on the light itself. But I think I'm happy. And anything else I want to say about these things here? I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing. I'm going super, super fast and just showing you these things. Just hit escape. Next thing I'm going to do after I've played around with these settings is if I go into the render settings, I would like to go to common and change this to maybe a Targa file. And then the animation section here, it says disable, and I switch that to standard, and I'll pick out 24 frames. And then, if I want to render this sequence, like pretend that there's animation on this, okay, because that's what's supposed to happen. If I go into the rendering section over here and I just go render, and I hit batch render, that will be it. It'll start rendering out the sequence, and they'll show up in the images folder of your project file. You can actually kind of follow it right there. It says the path right here on the render settings. Right now it's going into J Maya projects, Vanbot Bob, and images. And you can put your own prefix on it or whatever you want to, but that's what I'm going to do for now, and I think that's it. Done!